How easy is it to buy into negative stereotypes? Pretty easy, according to a new study. Sian Bylock and Alan McConnell, both of the University of Chicago, studied how a group of women did on a math test after being told that women do poorly in math compared to men. What are the implications? We're now joined by Sian Bylock and Alan McConnell. And welcome both to Chicago tonight. Okay, Sian Bylock, what happened when you administered this test?
So essentially, women took a math test, and after they performed some of the problems, we just reminded them casually that there is work out there showing that there's gender differences in math. We sort of reminded them of a prominent stereotype that women might not perform as well as men on a math task. And then they went back and did more problems. So some women were reminded of the stereotype, some women didn't get this information. And what we were really interested in was whether just being reminded of a negative stereotype about how one's group might perform would impact their performance. And indeed it did. Those women who were reminded of that stereotype performed significantly worse. Their math performance dropped between 10 and 15% on this math test.
And Al McConnell, not only that, but you found that the impact of that suggestion or that reminder went beyond performance just in math. Tell me about that.
Well, it seems like when people are in these situations, in our particular study with the women in math, they worry, they are concerned about their performance, they ruminate, and as a result, they are preoccupied with a lot of verbal thoughts while they're trying to solve the math problems. So what we found in one of our studies was that in a subsequent task that assessed people's ability to do verbal tasks, their performance was poorer after being under the stereotype threat condition than the women in our control group. So it seemed like those worries they had while they were performing the math task kind of diminished their working memory capacity in such a way that later on a verbal task they suffered in a task that was completely unrelated to the math stereotype.
So just to make sure that I understand, Sian Bylock, in other words, they were given the suggestion that, or reminded that sometimes women do not perform in math as well as men do, and not only was their performance in math affected, but in a subsequent test on verbal skills, the negative impact continued. Why do you think that is?
Well, we think that we have evidence that women in these situations start to really worry about screwing up. Even if they don't buy into the stereotype, they don't want to show evidence that the stereotype exists. And that's really powerful. So they don't even have to necessarily believe the stereotype. They just have to believe that someone else believes it. And just that is enough to make them start worrying, ruminating about messing up. And as a result, even when they're done with the math test, if they do another task, they're sort of depleted in a way. They don't have the cognitive horsepower to go on and do that second task. And you can imagine lots of situations where this might occur when one takes a college entrance exam, for example. You do math portions and verbal portions. So what we're showing here is that a stereotype about women in one domain might actually have implications for performance in another domain.